I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushua, by Hashem, Rakakadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Much respect to the brothers out there laboring in this truth and sincerity. This lesson is entitled, After the Horns Attack the Great Whore, the destruction of the children of Israel's enemy is not at hand, right? So what you see on your screen is Yahushua coming back in that great chariot where every eye should see him, right? We're going to get right into the lesson.
National headquarters of RT America at our nation's capital. Hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. Have you seen what's going on in France? In fact, what happened this weekend? Look at this. All right. That's part of the formal event, right? That's not. So what was supposed to be a Bastille Day celebration of the French Revolution almost turned into sort of another revolution. I mean, here's what we're doing. We're juxtaposing the formal pictures like these of the event that was planned with what was going on just blocks away. Take a look at this. I mean, it's kind of nuts, isn't it? So I guess we can't help but then want to ask the question that people are asking, what's going on with France? We're going to take you there in just a little bit. But we're going to begin with the suddenly spotty relations between the United States and the UK. Like a jealous lover, one is now threatening the other. That's right, the usual cozy relationship between these two allies, where more often than not, the US says jump and the UK says how high, is being threatened. By who? Third party, Huawei. Here, let me explain. So the US doesn't want the Brits to do business with Huawei, but the Brits don't want to fall behind the rest of the world when it comes to 5G technology, which is why they are already working with Huawei, although not yet in a full-blown capacity, and that's important. So here's the Trump administration's threat. It is telling the UK that if it doesn't follow the U.S. trade policy toward Huawei, as the U.S. specifies, then it's going to suffer the consequences when it tries to work out a new trade deal with the United States of America. So be warned, UK. Seems to be what they're saying. See, the direct threat from Trump to the UK made headlines this weekend in London, as reported in the Sunday Telegraph, which is the foundation of this story. By the way, and this is important, the reason the United States is banning Huawei and telling the UK that it must also do the same is because of spying. See, it accuses Huawei of planning to spy. So how is Huawei reacting to the accusation of planning to spy? Well, Huawei is actually offering the UK an anti-spy accord, like a treaty that they're willing to sign. The CEO says he will sign, under penalty of law, this accord. Now, here's what's interesting, and I think you're going to find this fascinating, or at least I did. The two U.S. companies that the Trump administration wants the Brits to do business with. In other words, don't do business with Huawei, do business with our companies. These two companies, they're not willing to sign the anti-spy accord. That's right. Here, let me spell it out for you. Apple and Google are apparently not willing to sign an anti-spy agreement with the UK, but Huawei is. Right? So is the U.S. pushback against Huawei fully founded on the fear of Chinese spying? Actually, no. That's another interesting part to this story. You see, most experts, including right here, tech experts in the United States that we have spoken to and reached out to, say the real reason the United States is pushing back against Huawei is to eliminate competition, not to eliminate the threat of spying. This is the news with Rick Sanchez, where we believe it is time to do news again.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilence, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows, right? Verse 31. So like in verse 30. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other, right? So immediately after those things go down and Jacob trouble pop off and the nations are fighting against each other, Yahweh Shai is going to come back in his glory, right? And all nations are going to mourn for him, right? This is the book of Revelation, chapter 1 and verse 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him, even so among. So once again, how is he coming to save everybody, but kindreds of the earth is going to wail because of him? Why? Because these people have been in gross darkness and wickedness, right? Wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, right? So America has laid down the ultimatum to the UK, right? The country that has been, seizing Iran, tankers, doing whatever the United States has said. So Trump done laid down the ultimatum. Hey, do what we say or it's going to be trouble. And this is the beginning of what the 10 whores hating, Shalaki, the 10 horns hating the whore, and gonna make her desolate with fire, right? This is the book of Revelation, chapter 17 and verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and their strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes, and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. This is 2 Ezra chapter 13 and verse 1. And it came to pass after 7 days I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea that moved all the ways thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him. That's Yahweh Shai, right? And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was a great multitude together, Shalaka, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven, to subdue the man that came out of the sea. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, and flew upon it, was that chariot, right? But I would have seen the region or place where the hill was graven, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were so afraid, and yet there's fight, like we just read in Revelations, right? And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So Yahushua, with those chariots, burnt those men who were really ready to fight. He burned them up, right? This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 66 and verse 15. Behold, the Lord Yahweh will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord Yahweh plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord Yahweh shall be many, right? It's going to be many that die on that day, right? This is the book of Zephaniah, chapter 1 and verse 14. The great day of the Lord Yahweh is near. It is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord Yahweh, the mighty men shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced city and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord Yahweh Shemashah, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung, right? So those who will wish upon the day of the Lord, man, you don't know. That day is going to be unlike any other. Right? Okay? This is the book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 18. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord Yahweh Shemashah. To what end is it for you? For the day of the Lord Yahweh Shemashah is darkness and not light. If a man did flee from a lion, and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him, you ain't getting away. Shall not the day of the Lord Yahweh Shemashah be darkness and not light, even very dark, and no brightness in it, right? None. Okay? Lord willing, this has been edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Salutations and shalom to the brothers out there laboring in this truth. Come back to you again with another lesson, Lord willing. Shalom.